we already seen that the definition and concept as well as history of remote sensing. So in this lecture, we see what is the process of remote sensing or how remote sensing is work, how the gather it images. So what is the processes behind this? Uh, we can see in this lecture. It is also called as the elements of remote sensing. So with this topic, we start our lecture. So first we see in this image that is remote sensing process. Now we already know that remote sensing means art or science of getting information about the earth's surface without physical contact with it. It is a simple definition of remote sensing. With this, it is a science or art of getting information of the earth's surface. So our target is earth's surface and getting information without physical contact with it. So we need satellites where the sensors are plot or uh, sensor are put on the some platforms. It is called as a satellite. So we need also some source for getting information. So sun is our source or electromagnetic radiation is our source. So first uh, in this image we see the three different elements which is act as a main elements of the entire remote sensing processes. That is, first one is the source, second one is the target, and third one is the sensor or satellite. So these three are main basic elements of the remote sensing because without source we cannot gather the information, and we need some targets from what we can collect the information, and we need sensor where the information is collected. So by observing these images we can clearly understand that there it is a three main elements of the remote sensing processes, that is source, target, and the sensor. Now we go in the deep. In this image we see the total remote sensing process where the source of energy is sun, which given energy to us or energy to earth surface. This energy is comes through the atmosphere and it reaches towards the ground. When it reaches towards the ground, it will be reflected, observed, or transmit by the earth surface characteristics. And this transmitted, reflected, and the observed energy is gathered by the sensor. Then this gathered by sensor total energy source is converted into image format. Then we can see in the next slide here the total 7 elements of the remote sensing processes is given. It is also called as the components of remote sensing. First one, we already seen that the energy source, which is here put it as a symbol or a sign. So in the entire remote sensing processes, the source of energy is sun. Means where the sun is located, it reflects some energy which is called as a electromagnetic radiation. This energy is useful or used in the remote sensing processes. So first one is the energy source which given energy to earth surface. Then second one is the radiation and the atmosphere. Second source is the or second part of remote sensing concept is radiation or passing through the atmosphere. This energy is not directly come towards the ground surface. When it comes from the sun to ground, it interact with the atmosphere. So this part is also very important in the remote sensing processes. Then C, third component of the remote sensing is interaction with the target. So what is the target here? Target is a ground surface or earth surface. So from the A to C, we've seen that the source of energy is come towards the ground surface with interaction with the earth surface, and it reaches towards the ground surface. Here on the ground surface, the reflection, absorption and transmission of the energy is happened here. Then this reflected, transform and the absorbed energy is analyzed by this sensor, which is the D, or the fourth element of the remote sensing. It is a recording of energy by the sensor. Sensor is not recorded energy derived from the sun, but it is recorded energy which is reflected, transmitted or absorbed by the earth surface. Means sensor is totally record the energy only from the which is reflected from the earth surface. So sensor or satellite is the fourth component or element of the remote sensing processes. Then the fifth element of remote sensing, when the sensor get or sensor record the energy by the sensor, then it sent towards the ground station. It is transmit, receipt and processes at the ground level, where the ground base is available for that particular sensor. There the total recorded energy or recorded data by the sensor is sent towards the ground base, where this recorded energy is transmitted into the image format, into the photograph by using different processes. So the fifth part of this remote sensing is very important, where the receipt of particular data from the sensor then transmit into the different file formats, and finally the process for the output is happened in this fifth component of the remote sensing processes. Then F is the sixth process or sixth component of the remote sensing, where we can interpret and analyze the data. Means here the human activity is started with, we can interpret the images, because the processor are not interpret or analyze the data. We need some basic knowledge to interpret or analyze the received data. So we need here human things who work as an interpreter or analyzer of the particular remote sensing data. And the seventh component of the remote sensing, its application. Means when we get the weather monitoring images, it needs to meteorological scientists which done the application for that particular data. As per this, the geographer, when we use the land use land cover images, then we applied this into the different subjects. For that, the seven component of remote sensing is the application. So by which total 7 elements or 7 components of entire remote sensing processes is completed. With these 7 different elements, we complete the remote sensing entire to getting data or source towards the application of remote sensing. Means A to G or 1 to 7 are these all components are needed to complete any remote sensing process. Then in the next image, there are two types of remote sensing. When we go in the deep, we seen that but first we need to see what is the two different type of remote sensing. First one is the passive remote sensing. Passive remote sensing means what? We use the natural source of energy and collect the information reflected from the earth surface and sent towards the ground. it is called as a passive remote sensing. Here, the energy source is a sun, which is natural. We don't produce any energy to getting information about the earth surface. Here we use the natural source of energy, that is sun, which given us the sunshine. It is in the remote sensing processes called as the electromagnetic radiation. This radiation is reflected, transmitted or absorbed by the earth surface or elements of the earth surface, and this absorbed, transmitted or reflected data is captured by the sensor, which is put on the satellite and sent towards the ground base. So this is total passive remote sensing processes. Means passive remote sensing is used natural source of energy. With natural source of energy, when we collect some information without physical contact with the earth surface, it is called as a passive remote sensing. When we go to the second type of remote sensing, it is active remote sensing. Here, the source of energy is not natural, it is an artificial source of energy. Means some satellite or some sensor send their energy towards the ground surface, and this energy again reflected, observed or transmitted by the elements of the earth surface, and this data is again collected by the satellite and sent towards the ground base, and these images or this remote sensing is called as a active remote sensing. Here the natural source of energy is not present, so source of energy is given by the satellite or the sensor. Means here artificial source of energy is used for the remote sensing processes, so it is called as a active remote sensing. Any question?
No, sir.